Record meeting. Okay, so hello everyone. Welcome to day 3. Today we are going to learn introduction to AWS Storage Services. So like any other day, this is a disclaimer. All this opinion expressed in this during our presentation is solely mine, has nothing to do with my employer. In a AWS storage portfolio, right? Let me quickly go to console and show you there instead of kind of walking you through. PPT. I think I'm something wrong here. So if we go to the AWS console and if we go around storage services, right? You're able to see a lot many services run under the storage. And where the storage? Yeah. So if you see here, this is like S3, Elastic File Storage, FSX, S3 Glacier, Storage Gateway, and AWS Backup. So there are like 6 services come under storage, and we're going to, in today's session, we are primarily focusing around S3 because this is one of those services which is very, very popular and is being asked into all those interviews and all those certification exams. And knowing S3 make your job easy for if you're preparing for interview or if you're preparing for any exam, or also if you're working on a day-to-day basis, because I think S3 is the most popular service which we have in Amazon. So let's go segregate all those services which we have into kind of storage which we can segregate. So S3 usually come as a object storage, and the object storage is nothing but you can store anything into it without even worrying about what is the file type or how. And it means like you can store your normal text file, you can store any flat file, you can store any nested file like JSON, Parquet, Avro, etc. Also, you can store media, which comes with your audio, video. Means it allow you to have all kind of a file being stored. So that's what we call it object storage, like all the object is being stored here. Then we have Elastic Block Storage, Amazon Elastic Block Storage. Block storage have a very specific requirement what kind of a file you can able to store within the block, right? So block storage is like your hard disk, your SAN, all these things come under the block storage. Usually, the database is being store, or maybe you can say configure or install around block storage. So if you're working on SQL Server, or if you're working on Oracle, or you're working on Postgres, MySQL, etc., those get stored. So remember we talked about, okay, what is the block size of database? So that's what we are talking about. There's a minimum, that's the lowest unit where data is being get stored. And thereafter we have something called file storage, and SFTP, FTP, all this kind of storage. Usually it's more kind of shared storage, which allow you to put an object there. So we call it file storage. Usually file storage, you can your file storage mostly we can say is your network storage, right? We used to have a kind of in Windows. We used to have some storage which where you can go and put all those files. And that's what your file storage. We have a two flavor of it in Amazon. One is your for Windows, another one is for your Linux. Okay, and backup is a self-explanatory where you can put all those backup there, right? So yeah. When we talk about any storage in AWS, we usually
talk around a couple of factors, right? What is the durability of the storage? What is the availability of the storage? Is there any security around that storage? What is the cost of storage? Scalability and performance and integration, right? So these are the couple of characteristics. Mostly is self-explanatory. For instance, durability define you like how much data loss you can happen against your storage. If storage went down or something, how much data you're going to lose it. Availability is like, okay, what will be the expected downtime? Okay, if service provider is providing you some kind of service, let's say S3, okay, what will be the downtime of S3 in a year, right? Which means S3 is not going to available for you for that particular period of time. uh, and thereafter security, whether it's providing you any kind of a in transit or encryption at rest, or maybe server side encryption or client side encryption, that kind of thing. Cost, how much it costing you, maybe around per GB, per terabyte, so per hour or per month or per year. It's totally based on like, okay, what's the cost model is there around your storage. And then scalability is like how much data you can store mm, within your object, right? Means S3 almost a scalability, like you can install as many, you can have as much as storage you want, and any number of user able to access your S3 bucket. So this all comes under the scalability. And then you have a performance. Okay, how what was the bandwidth like? Okay, if when you're uploading any data into it, how much time it's taking. When you are downloading from that file, from that storage system, how much time it's taking. If there is any latency, for instance, object storage like S3 always going to be have a greater latency as compared to a block storage like Elastic Block Storage. Uh, it means like when you access your S3 bucket through some client tool, uh, the time it will take for you to access those file, or the data within the file is going to be more as compared to if you're accessing that similar file or similar data through block storage. And I think the last one is integration. And integration is usually talk around uh, how much how your storage is integrated with API calls, or with other services. For instance, S3, you can access S3 almost all those services which is there in AWS. In the prime cases, is like you're accessing S3. In EMR, we call it EMR FS. You're accessing S3 through Athena. You are accessing S3. Athena is nothing but a query tool. We'll go deep around Athena, Redshift, all those things in our analytics talk, but just for your just for information. Or maybe the quick site, which is kind of visualization tool. So this is like, and then how you can how well it is integrated. Uh, let's understand little more around durability and availability. The reason being, most of the time, the question being asked, what's the difference between durability and availability, as well? What is the default durability of S3? Because S3 has a different storage classes, and which we are going to learn down the line. And but durability is nothing but how durable your file is. And when we say like, okay, you have a durability of 99.99, which is 4 nines, it means you are putting a copy of let's say if you're storing some file to your S3, how much copy is being stored? So maybe same copy is being stored in multiple data centers, or same copy, or maybe duplication of copy is stored in a same data center. So that was the defined 99.99. So it means you're going to have it 2 copies of your data available. So if something went wrong with one of those data centers, or maybe the blog or anything, you still have that other file will be available for you. When we talk about 99.99, which is like multiple nines, which is 11 9 in here, it means we are talking about copy being stored in 3 AZ. And remember, we talked about what is availability zone is. Availability zone is nothing but uh, a combination of data centers, right? And just think of you're just putting that copy to that many location. So is it like your file is eventually if it talk about it will never get lost. Yep. So here are some number and which is kind of mind-boggling. So this is we are talking about over the period of year. So if we say like, okay, we have availability of uh, yeah.
I don't think anybody is able to see your screen right now.
Yes,
Oh,
the screen is not visible. It's just the conference bridge screen I can see.
okay. You guys have told me earlier. Okay, and it was not visible from beginning, or just been start
From the start.
from the
Now it is
start.
visible. Yeah, it is visible now.
Okay, so why you guys didn't inform me earlier?
Yeah, I tried to connect, but yeah, now it is visible.
Okay, is it visible, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you guys understand what I was talking
Yeah,
around.
it's just the keywords that you are using and explaining each definitions of that thing.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. So yeah, we'll talk about all those object storage portfolio. We already talked about what is object or block and file backup and everything, and we talked about what is durability, availability, security, cost, scalability, performance, integrity. This is try to understand. This is very neat concept. You all should know around durability and availability. Durability is like when we say 99.99, it means 4 nines of durability. We are talking here is we are saying, just 1 second, let me quickly. Okay, I have to mute someone. So guys, if you're not speaking, just mute yourself because this session is being recorded. I will highly appreciate. Okay, so when I said like, okay, this durability is 99.99, it means you're putting 2 copies of your file into two sites, or maybe we can call it data centers here, right? Uh, and when we say like, okay, you have a durability of 11.9, it means we are putting 3 copies. We are putting your copies into 3 AZs, which is it's more kind of saying your file never get lost, or you won't ever have an issue around your file. So let's see how it will amplify in terms of numbers. Okay, so availability, when I say like because of 5.9 availability, it means over the period of year, only I'm going to have a 5 minute, 15 second of downtime. And if I say like 6.9, I'm saying only 31 second. If I'm saying, okay, almost like 7.9, it means I'm saying only 3 second of downtime. And when I'm saying 100, it means like only 300 microseconds. So usually, S3 provide 11.9 of level 9 of availability, right? It means we have an option. Means it's just like 300 microsecond. You can think of your S3 will be not available for you, which is nothing. And I can't. I just if I blink, I eyes, it is just gone. And what about durability? So if we talk about 5 durable, it means like if we have like 100K objects, there might be chances one object will be gone. If we have like uh, 1 million objects, that's one object will be gone. If we have a 10 million objects, that's one object will be gone. If we have, I don't know what's the number here, but it's like it means you never ever lose your file here. Uh, any question here, guys? Okay, fair enough. Let's move. We talked about block storage, right? And I said like, okay, you can block storage will let you have your means it will be more kind of EBS kind of storage, elastic block storage, and which is kind of suitable for installing your databases or kind of specific file. You can think of your hard disk, your SAN, which is around the block storage. The latency on the block storage is very less, and but we are not going to focus more around block storage. What we focusing around is object storage, that is S3. Okay, and we hopefully will able to cover around something around the block storage when we work on the compute side, when we work on EC2, how you can use EC2 and a block storage. And one more thing, right? You cannot have a we talked about okay how you can measure your storage, and one was okay how scalable your storage is. There's a limitation around block storage. You cannot have a block storage of maybe petabyte, or you can have a petabyte, but you cannot have multi-petabyte of block storage, or it's going to be super costly. So definitely all those characteristics which we have talked about around block storage is going to be expensive, around cost, around durability, around availability. But the latency, if you talked about okay how latency on block storage is going to be better as compared to in object storage. Okay, so let's talk about S3. S3 is nothing but an object storage, and if I go with the Amazon definition, S3 is an object storage service that offer you to industry-leading scalability, data availability, security, and performance. In S3, you can actually store as much, you can store as much as data you want. There's a no limit, and there's no limit being published yet, or I'm not aware of if there is any limit being published around S3 storage. But it means you can store infinite data to S3. One file size can be from 0 byte to 5 terabyte. So if you have a file size more than 5 terabyte, you have to split your file in order for you to upload into S3. Remember we talked about availability and durability. So S3 is designed to have a level 9 durability. And one important when we talk about more around S3 or working on around S3 is all those S3 bucket name is unique, and it's a global. So is it not like okay we are in one region and where the name is unique? It's more around okay in entire globe. If someone has created an S3 bucket, you won't able to create the same similar S3 bucket. So there are some rules around how to create or means how to name your S3 bucket, which you can find in AWS document, but something around You cannot start your bucket name with some special character or something. Yeah. And what next? So let's learn around key concept, and then we can start doing our demo part. So here are key concept around S3. One is your bucket. Bucket is nothing but your, the one which you are creating the key location where you're planning to store your data. Object, all those subfolders or all those files being stored in your S3, we call it object. Key is nothing but is representation of your bucket and an object, how you can represent that. Reason where you are creating your S3 bucket. And consistency model. So understanding the consistency model is important in S3. So let's understand what is consistency model, and then we can go for a demo. So consistency model will derive how your bucket will behave when you perform certain kind of a operation against your S3 bucket. So if you're creating a new object, when I say create a new object in S3, it means you're uploading a new object in S3, right? Or you're writing something. So if you're uploading any object to S3, it provides you read after write consistency. What does it mean? So read after write is, so let's say it will be available for you to read first, even before you try to write it. So example is, if I have uploaded a file and I'm giving an API call, around get bucket. So you able to get, or maybe I'm just doing a select API call against your bucket and wanted to read what all data is being stored in my bucket. You able to do that, but let's say if you wanted to overwrite, or if you wanted to write something in your bucket, it may not available for you at the same time. If I'm comparing with the read, so read, just the way you the time you just uploaded your bucket, it will be available for you to read. It will take some time to propagate propagate across multiple AZs, and then it will available for you to write. But this read and write is very, the latency is very less. So is it not like, okay, it's not going to be available for 1 hour or 2 hours? It's like I'm talking here in seconds or in milliseconds actually. There's a one caveat when we talk about uploading, that if you're getting any get request around your, or head request around your S3 bucket, and if you wanted to list it, right, there might be a possibility we won't able to see that bucket in your list. Remember, we run the command S3 AWS S3 ls and the location. It might be possible you're not able to see all this object is being available for you for the listing when you're just uploading it. It may take a couple seconds. And
sorry to interrupt, Navneet, but you said that we have to call APIs. So how can we call APIs from S3 bucket?
Calling the API is around, maybe you're calling through some application, or maybe you are calling through CLI. API is nothing but you are accessing that your source through command line, or maybe through application, we call it, right, application program interface. So one way for me to read a file in S3 is I can go manually and read that file, okay, by going into console, going into bucket or everything. But when we have thousands and thousands and thousands of bucket, you do not want it to do that. So what you can do is, you wanted to do maybe just wanted to write some kind of a command which go and fetch the information around your bucket. That's what we call it, API. It makes sense?
Yeah, it is, because I used Python, so I never used AWS, but I used Python to call the APIs. So
Yeah, so there's a multiple APIs available for Python. So when you use Moto 3, and which let you means which actually is a Python libraries, means Python APIs for S3, means for AWS. So you can use that.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, and then there's something called eventual consistency when you overwrite or delete any object. So eventual consistency, it means like, okay, eventually it's going to happen. So let's say if I'm deleting some file and I'm putting some kind of command to list all those buckets, there might be possibility even after deleting the file, you able to see that see that file in your list. So that's we call it eventual consistency. Okay, and yeah, let's go to next slide, where we're talking around different storage classes. So in S3, there are multiple storage classes, and the storage classes actually classify around all those characteristics we talked around: latency, availability, durability, uh, cost, etc., and integration, and so all those things which we have talked about. So there are multiple storage classes which is built around S3. One is a general purpose. So whenever we create a new S3 bucket, there's always a general purpose. We call it S3 standard, and then we have something called S3 intelligent tiering, and this is something which launched during the reInvent 2018. Uh, so what S3 intelligent tiering will allow you to do is it will it has a machine learning algorithm built in it. It look for access pattern of your file and see, okay, there's a file which sits in your S3 and it's not been accessed almost for 30 days. And if you enable that, and we can talk about how you can enable that bucket policy when I'm just doing the demo. It will move your bucket from your standard to infrequent access, which is our next storage class. Infrequent access is like it's cheaper than your S3 standard, and it is designed for having file which is not frequently being accessed. So this way, what Amazon telling you, okay, if you're not accessing your file that frequently, we have something called infrequent access. Just put your file there, and we'll charge you less. And there's another one is infrequent standard access. It means it will provide you durability of I believe we can talk on the next section, but it's 4.9, but I don't exactly remember here. If we have a slide there, we can talk around those durability and everything for all the storage classes. But lessons, this one zone is okay. You can have infrequent file only in one zone and not in the 3AZ, right? We talked about on that earlier. Okay, if you have a 3AZ, it means like, okay, you have a 11.9 durability, which is for S3 standard. But if you have a one zone, it means maybe your file is there in only one availability zone, and that may or may not have a more than two or three data center. And there is something called archive, right? So in enterprises, sometimes we have a requirement. Okay, we are not using the data, but we have to have this data available for next 10 years. And especially if you're working with the medical industry for auditing purposes, or if you're working for a financial institute, you wanted to keep the record of all the data for next 5 to 10 to 15 years before you can go ahead and destroy it. Or maybe you wanted to keep it for your future reference and use cases. So this is where this S3 glaciers come into picture. So when you put into S3 glaciers, the retrieval time of your data is very significant. It will take around 3 to 5 hours just to retrieve your data if you're putting into S3 glaciers. But price is very, very cheap when you're putting your data into S3 glaciers. And deep archive, it's even much cheaper, but the retrieval time is around 1 to 7 days. Any question here on the storage class?
In real life, where we can use Glacier and Deep Archive?
So, example, you are a banking institute, right? And you wanted to keep record for all your clients for almost for 10 years, and you're not accessing those files. You can only access that file once in a while, maybe in a year or year end. That's a scenario where you wanted to put your file into glaciers, because you're only accessing that file. And if you're asking for auditing, it is not like, okay, I need it right now. It's more like, okay, I have to do auditing. Can you provide me your file? Then you have an option to go and request for that file, and you are kind of uploading those files from the glaciers, and you're retrieving it after 3 to 5 hours. Or if you put into archive, S3 Glaciers Deep Archive, you have an option for a couple of days to retrieve your file. And same goes with if you are a medical institute or medical organization or maybe hospital, and you have a tons of data which you're not daily use, but you wanted to keep it for maybe for auditing purposes, or your government mandated. So that's come into picture. You can see of all those weather data, right? All the weather data is get stored. So one of the example. So yeah, let's move forward. Okay. Remember we talked about durability around multiple storage. So durability, I think, durability is 11.9 for all those storage classes. That's awesome. And then we have availability. Availability is, if you see here, we have maximum availability for S3 standard, which is 4.9, right? And thereafter we have for other rest of them is we are having 9.990, except for glaciers where we are having 4.9. Go with the SLA, availability SLA as well. Like, okay, what Amazon is claiming is what is the agreement between Amazon and the end user. Availability zone, your data is gets stored in more than 3 AZs for all, I think, standard and intelligent tiering and infrequent access, except that S3 one AZ, one infrequent access. So one zone infrequent access, where because it's a one zone, so anyways it do not make sense to have in multiple AZs, because name implies it's a one zone. So the data will be available only one zone. Maximum capacity charge per object, how much, what will be the retrieval cost around, how much capacity you can put, like how much, what will be the minimum object size you can put within that storage layer there. Same goes with how much time you can store your data. What is the minimum requirement for you to storing the data? For instance, if you are storing your data in archive S3 Glaciers Deep Archive, your data should be stay there more than 180 days. For glaciers is 90 days. For intelligent tiering is 30 days. Retrieval fee, we do not have any retrieval fee around S3, but we have retrieval fee around S3 infrequent access per GB, like how much data you're retrieving from S3 through your application. And all these things I will not go by, I will not go one by one, but you get it, right? This latency is in milliseconds, so that's awesome. Here in seconds, here is minute and hours, here in multiple hours. Everything is an object storage. Life cycle transition, you can do a life cycle transitions against it. It means like either you're able to move from S3 standard to intelligent tiering to infrequent access, frequent access to one zone or glaciers, etc. yes, you're able to do that. This is around pricing. So S3 pricing is primarily happening around storage, how much data you are storing, and how much request and data retrieval you are doing, means how much API call you're making, how much put, get, delete, or there's a lot of API calls available against S3. And if there's a data transfer, okay, you're moving from on-prem to from S3 to on-prem or to some different cloud providers. So that's the data transfer charges are available, are applicable. And then management and replication. So if you're enabling, some kind of logging against your S3, or maybe you're analyzing your S3 access pattern or etc., you can, and then there's the charges, or maybe you're enabling cross-region replication around your S3. Okay. The other one is permission. So when we create any S3 bucket, by default, this bucket is private. What does it mean? It means no one able to access your S3 bucket except that the root account user or the user who created that bucket. So these two people able to access it. Bucket policy is more like so when you access your S3, you can create a bucket policy. A bucket policy allow you to access your bucket as well as all the object within it. And then we have a access control policy, is more like, okay, if you have a multiple objects sit under your S3, S3 access policy allow you to have an access around object label. So bucket policy is more on the root label, and access policy is much more around your object label, and we'll talk more there. And thereafter, S3 encryption. You can encrypt your data in S3. By default, data is being encrypted during in transit. So it means like, okay, if you're making any call, the data has been encrypted. We have server-side encryption, and then we have client-side encryption. So server-side encryption is your, address, maybe your all this thing like, S3, SSE, and S3, KMS, SSEC. All this one is your server-side encryption, which is, it means it is happening on Amazon side. But you can enable, if you want, if you can enable your client-side encryption too, it means on your end, it means you're encrypting your bucket and then uploading it. Or in transit, like, okay, when you're calling to your bucket, so whether when it's in your when it's in as the AWS environment, it will be encrypted. Okay, so what we do next is I will go and walk you through console and show you like what all options and what all things which we have discussed here. Okay. So S3 comes under the storage. You go here and type S3, and you can have S3. What I did is I also kind of pin here because I have to use that frequently. So let's understand what all things which we can do. Create bucket is like, okay, I'm creating something to store. It's just like, okay, creating some folder. If we talk about our desktop, where we can store all those all the relevant documents there, right? So AWS Learning S3 demo. So when I'm creating this S3 bucket, let's see what all options I have here. I see like, okay, where I can create a bucket. This one is being newly created. I think the S3 is not available. So if you see something, where which is not, which is kind of grayed out, it means this service is not available in that particular region. This best practice around is creating S3 bucket is, so let's say if you are in West Coast, you wanted to have your bucket created in West Coast. If you are in East Coast, you wanted to have your bucket created in East Coast. So what will happen is your latency to retrieve the data from your S3 bucket is going to be low as compared to if you're putting into cross region, right? And thereafter we have an option is how your bucket can be accessed. So by default, if you look here, we have an option to block all the public access. It means when we are creating that S3 bucket, bucket will be bucket is not going to be accessible to anyone apart from the one who has created or the root user. So we are creating as a root user, so this bucket is going to accessible to us. But if we have a multiple user that we have in our, I think we have in our account. Remember we talked about creating a couple of user. One is admin, other one is your read-only user, and other one was admin user. So this bucket is not going to available to them. Means it's going to available for admin, but not for the read-only user, because admin have an access to see all the bucket. And yes, so let's create, and there's something called advanced option. Let's see what we have in here. So what advanced setting will tell you, store object using a write once warm. So I think this is something new has come. So it is more like, okay, if you're keeping in this option, right? So, and if your application is writing to your bucket, and then what it will do is it will prevent to overwrite, or to prevent to delete for fixed amount of time. So let's say if you're defining here, let's do it. Let's play around this one. Enable. Okay. For fixed amount or indefinitely. I think there's an option for us to. Anyways, let it be disabled for now, as which is, but this is the option. We have it here. Once done, bucket is being created. So if I have created this bucket. Let me create a same bucket and see if it allow me to create a bucket or no. The bucket name with same name is already exists, so you cannot have a duplicate bucket name. Let me put something like this. If allow me to create a bucket. Okay, the bucket name must be start with the lowercase. So as I told you, right, there are some nomenclature is available against your S3 bucket. So which you have to follow when you're creating your S3 bucket. One is when it should be unique across globe. So it's here, right? It's showing globe. It's not showing the reason where I have created. The reason being S3 bucket is a global, and same with the IAM policy. IAM policy is also a global. So this is what we have. So when we create a bucket, right? S3 bucket. So this is where there's an option called, if you wanted to copy the ARN. We talked about what is ARN as Amazon resource name, which is required when you work on creating the policies, etc., which we have discussed around, which we had discussed in our day 2 session. Let's go and little deep into it. So first option when you create your bucket is, okay, how you can upload your how you can upload data within your bucket. You can either drag and drop the way I'm doing it, which is awesome. This is done. So if you see here, I got a success message. View detail. So, this is a success matter. This is success, right? I think it will give you output as a 200, and if it's fail, it will give you 400. But yeah, so this is what we have here. Done. Awesome. You can also upload by using your CLI. You can use or by API as well. So once you're done with by uploading that file, there are a couple of options, right? When you click on this one, let's say if I quickly wanted to see what all things are there in my file, there's something called select from. So you click on select from, it will able to read the file. Right now it supports the CSV, JSON, and Parquet, and these are the delimiter. You can define a custom delimiter too. For us, this should be the compression type, ZZip or BZZip too. But for us, it's just a CSV with a comma delimiter. So we're just clicking here. Okay, so I see this is file name and the age and everything in there. Okay, what next? SQL editor. You can write a SQL expression too, and this is something really cool against your S3. Okay, if I have to look for maybe name, right? Uh, uh, so as if I have to just get that first one, you got it right. So this is very neat feature which we have in S3. You can run we call it S3 select. If you see here, what I did is I have this S3 as an object, which I'm able to query it, and I'm just doing a dot notation here, and this is your index 1 and 2 and 3. So if I give here as 2, it will give me only age. See here. So this is really cool with S3. And what else? Yeah. So this is around object. This is your object URL. So let's click on this object URL. Okay. I got an error. Access denied. Anyone can tell me why? Okay. No ticket here. Fine. Because I have not granted any access to this. And when I create this S3 bucket, remember I showed you this bucket is private. It is not accessible publicly. So what I did is I tried to access that bucket over internet, and that's the reason it was not accessible to me. As you see, right, access is private. What we can do next is we'll talk about various property, and before that, let's talk around. Yeah, we can talk around various property even before coming to object. So see, this is your S3, right? This is your object. This is your bucket. This is your object. So if I have to, and this is your stage. CSV is your key. Remember we talked about object, bucket, object, and key. This is your you can denote as a key as well, because how for us it's a folder and everything as such. Under the hood, it's more like key and value. It's a key and everything else is a value. What all objects are stored under it, it's a value for S3. So if I'm creating a new folder, let's say new folder, and I'm putting something into it. Maybe I'm just putting this file one more time. Yeah, I'm putting this file one more time. And this time I will go next. Let's see what all options we have here, right? So one way is like, okay, you are installing everything as a default by just clicking on upload. Let's click on next. What all options which we have. So when you upload this file, what you're doing is we are creating. It will allow you to create a access policy. Remember we talked about ACL, access control list. You can add another account here, where you can provide that account ID or maybe the email address. So if you wanted to enable cross-account access against this S3 object, you can do that. And thereafter, it will also have an option for you to Okay, so if I have to grant a public access, if I have to make the bucket, make the object public, I have to first make my bucket public, right? So it's not like, okay, my bucket is private and I can make my object public. So that's really neat because you cannot have an object public when your bucket is private. Okay, this is where we have everything. Remember we talked about all those storage classes, standard, intelligent tuning, and infrequent access, etc. Okay, yes. So by default, it's go into standard. Here we talked about what is the availability zone, where how much, like in how many availability zone your data going to be available. As we have a sorry, the data is going to copy it, so it's going to be how much durability is going to provide you, which is like 11.9. And then you have a glacier, and you have a deep archival, and this one we used to have a reduced redundancy, but it is no longer being used, so it is not applicable anymore. We used to have this one till last year. Okay, yeah, this is awesome. We can enable multiple encryption. One is by default, there's not encrypted, but you can enable Amazon S3 encryption, and then your key managed services. Like, if you already have some kind of encryption, you can select and have it enabled here. And when we talked about cross origin replication, something course, we'll see what is this one. Okay, right now I'm not enabling anything here. The key value, remember we talked about why it is important for us to tagging your object in AWS. It will help you to do a segregation around the building. Okay, who all using this bucket? So if it's HR bucket and you wanted to have a cost associated to your HR, you can have it. You can put it against your you can put something like HR data, because it has a age and date, right? Save it. So I've created this one. What next? Okay, nothing else. It's just reviewing it and done. I'm done with uploading a file. Okay. And so here I talked about how key and value. So when we have created a new folder, even a new folder, when I sorry, let me go back and select this one. This one is also considered as a key value, but how I consider as a key value for this one is my key going to be bucket name, but my value is going to be new folder slash h.csv. So this is my value, and this is my key here. So in this case, key will not remain new folder. Key will be always remain your S3 bucket, and subsequent folders, subfolders, and your object name is going to be your key, right? Uh, does it make any sense? Okay, I will take a pause and I will let you guys ask any question if you have any. Okay, silent means no question. Perfect. What next? Let's learn about the various tabs which we have in S3. Properties. This is important. So let's say if you wanted to maintain the versioning against your object, you can enable versioning. Just kind of click here and save it. What it means is, let's quickly understand. So I have this file. I showed you, right? We have a 4 record here. Let me quickly update the file and add one more record. And now So I have updated the file. I have added one new record to it, and now I'm uploading in here. Upload. So when I click on this one, right, when I go here, if you see here, I got something called, there's a drop down showing, okay, latest version. If I just go down, it will be showing me the previous version. So that's what it, this is what versioning means. And when you open it, it will download your previous version file. And if you open this one, it will download your latest version file. Okay. Let's see if I'm doing a select against this one, what will be the result. See, I got a new one. So it means what is what is telling us is, okay, when you, even if you are enabling a versioning, you when you are doing a S3 select, you always get result from that latest version. Let's go see explore something else. Server access logging is more like, okay, how you, like, you wanted to enable how your S3 being accessed, like, who all accessing your S3, and everything will be get logged into your it will get logged and provide you result there. So let's say logging. Static website hosting. Remember, I told you maybe we can do this demo, but we have very limited time. So and it's required almost like 15 to 20 minutes. But again, this is awesome, and this is where when I talk about this point, I will talk about how you can have it. So you can have index.xhtml, and then you have error.html and save. But let's click on this one and see, okay, we are having this access denied again. Why? I will tell you later, because I have not enabled any access to it. Object label logging. So if you wanted to have any object label logging enabled to it, read, write, you can only choose the trail in the same region as the bucket to create trail. Okay. So we have not created any cloud trail yet, so it's not showing anything here. But cloud trail is nothing but a tool which allow you to have a API monitoring. So we are not doing that here. Encryption. Remember, I talked about how you can enable multiple encryption. One is your at rest, other means server side, other one is client side. So here we are talking here the server side. So we have a two encryption. One is your AES 256, other one is your KMS. KMS is being managed by AWS. Sorry, this is like managed by AWS itself, and this is your this is like, it is also managed by AWS, but you can provide your own encryption as well. And this is AWS default. This encryption is by AWS itself. So we are not enabling any encryption, but you can do that. Object log. Okay, you can enable logging around the object, which we have talked around earlier, which help you to prevent any overwrite or deletion against your S3 bucket. We talked about tag, how important have a tagging around your S3 bucket. So let's say it's a demo, it's a S3. So I know, okay, if any cost occur around it, I can do that. Also, you can create an access policy against tag. So that's one more feature. Transfer accelerator. This is something which is like, okay, if you wanted to download your file from S3 and you need to kind of speed up the process, you can enable that. That's transfer accelerator. It is more like enabling that CDN is cloud distribution network. So it help you to reduce that latency around downloading and uploading your files. Event, if you wanted to generate any notification, let's say if someone deleting an object, right? You can all object, all means for all object, if you wanted to delete or send notification to SNS topic. SNS is simple notification services. You can create an SNS topic and include here, means you can provide your name, and means you can provide your email address or mobile phone number. When you create an SNS, like it will allow you to have an option to provide you your email address or your mobile number to send a notification. So you can do that as well. So we are not doing it here. And requester pay, this is very neat feature which is being added to uh, S3. One is like, okay, if you're doing a data exchange, right, and you put your data into S3 bucket, and you wanted everyone who wanted to access this data pay something to you, and especially all those content creators, and maybe you have a research organization, you have published some research paper, and if I wanted to have access to your research, I have to pay for it. So I can enable here, and I can define, okay, how much I need to pay. So it means there's a data exchange service in there, so you can use it for this one. So this is all about S3 properties. Let's quickly go to permission. This is key. Understanding S3 permission is important, because a lot of questions comes against S3 permissions. Okay, one is your S3 public access. What you can do that is like, okay, it by default it block all those access, right? Block public access to the bucket and object granted to a new access control ACL. Block public and through ACL and any new public bucket access. So what you can do is, if you have to enable, you have to go here, save it, and type confirm. So this bucket is publicly accessible. So let's quickly see what it means here. If I click on this one, still showing me an access denied. We'll see why. Because I have enabled this bucket as a public bucket, but I have not define any policy like who will be able to access this bucket. This is where all this bucket policies and everything come into picture, right? So remember I talked about control access list. Control access is list around object. We'll talk there later, but let's talk about bucket policy, because we are working on bucket on a root level. So you can create a bucket policy for this bucket to be accessed. How you can do that? There's a two way. You already knowing how to write a JSON, or you can use something called policy generator for you to create a policy. This is very neat tool for you to create a policy. You're clicking on AIM policy. Either you can allow it and deny it. Remember we talked about when we create a policy, we have an effect either going to be an allow or deny. And then we are choosing AWS services. Okay, perfect. S3. What all actions I wanted to do? Maybe I wanted to put here or list bucket. And there is something called get object as well. Get object. And then we have something called delete object too. So what I'm saying is like, okay, it will allow me to do all this operation: list, get, delete, put. Yeah, put object. And delete object. So delete bucket. So it will let me to do this fourth step. ARN, which is your for which bucket, right? I wanted to do that. So what is my bucket ARN? Either you can copy from here, or you can go to here and select your bucket, and there's an option called copy ARN. I found this one is neat. Okay, I go here and control V. Perfect. Let's add in statement. Okay, this is what we are talking here. This is what we're gonna do, and generate a policy. So we are generating a policy here. Okay, this bucket. I'm pasting this bucket policy here. This is okay, yeah. So this one is why it's asking me to have a principal S3 bucket policy. Okay, I did not provide the principal name. I did, right? Strange. Remember we talked about what is principal is your IAM user. That's your principal. So here we have a user AWS learning. This is your principal. Similar. Karen is your generate policy. Okay. So what I will do here is I just copy paste this thing, and maybe I can replace this action because I wanted to have all the sections instead of the one which was listed earlier, which is listed in this one. And yeah, I'm all set. Okay, contain invalidation. My so maybe when I'm generating it, I just kind of copy paste it from multiple policies. That's the reason it's having some kind of an invalid JSON. But that's the whole motive for you to you can create and have it added here for you to access. Okay, maybe I can resolve this one later. The other one is your course, which is cross origin and resource. I don't remember the full form. What is course full form? Let me quickly check. Yeah, cross origin resource sharing. Yep. Is it like, okay, if you have a website, right? If you're generating and if you're creating in a website, you can you wanted to access your website across, I don't know, I mean, you wanted to access across anywhere, anyone can access your S3 bucket, right? This is where you have to enable CORS. So let me quickly see if I have any example around CORS. Yep. Okay. So when you how you can define CORS is let's say you have your S3, you're going, so CORS is more kind of an XML, and this is your allowed origin, and in allowed origin you wanted to replace with your maybe you wanted to replace with your website name, right? So this way anyone able to access your website from anywhere. We talked about property, we talked about S3. Yep, this is what we are. This is what I was talking here in CORS. So if you go here, you can. And you can save. So if you're putting something like maybe some kind of if you're putting some kind of a HTML, maybe it will allow you to have that HTML added to it. let me quickly put some HTML file and see if I'm able to have that HTML file. Okay, let me quickly go and add this HTML file. If I see, let me see if I'm able to access this HTML. Oh, sorry, it should be index.html, not props.html. What the heck? So I think I have to go here and upload, this way. It's not letting me drag and drop. So this is where my file index.html. Okay, now let's go to property, static website. Let me click here. Okay, still it's giving me an error just because remember we were having this error when I was creating the bucket policy. But you can generate a bucket policy around and put and everything and have it accessed. So this is fairly easy with the instruction. And I talked about course, how you can define it. Let's talk about access control list. So this is where, like, when remember we talked about you can only enable access control is if you wanted to have your file on sorry if you this is required for your objects. If you wanted to have your object available for everyone, so you can enable it. So let's quickly see if I'm able to access that object from S3. This means that access denied because I have to work on creating the bucket policy. Okay, maybe I can fix it. But before, let me complete this part. And then this is like your management. We talked about how you can create a lifecycle policies against your S3 bucket. So when you click here, maybe S3 bucket, and for all the objects, go next. Current version, you can also select the previous version. We do not want it to go with it. Previous version, current version here as well. You want it to expire, yes, then maybe after 30 days. And what will be the result after the expiration? Just clean up everything, which is like, and I acknowledge this one and save it. So now you have a bucket policy created against it. What you want to do is either you can enable it or disable it. Okay. And this is like about if you wanted to have a bucket replicated to cross region. Right now we are having this bucket in US, I think origin region. You wanted to have in North Virginia, US East 2. So you can do that as well by starting, kind of doing that the cross region replication. But remember, we talked about there is a cost associated with enabling the replication. So you wanted to pay attention there if you actually need it. You can create analysis against your S3 bucket. I have not played much around this one. And then you have a metrics around your S3 bucket, how much was the storage, how much request has been put, what's the data transfer, if there's any replication enable against it. I have not played around inventory as well, so I don't know much about it. And then we have a access point. So this is something which newly has been launched. So if you wanted to have an access point created, so let's say S3 is AWS service, right? But you wanted to have some kind of access point being created from your on-prem data center, or from your own VPN. VPC, also you can create that. It will let you access the S3 resources within your own network. And if you're talking about on-prem. Yeah, having said that, so there's a lot of other things which is there around S3, which you can go and learn. Remember, I talked about getting started with S3. Yeah, this is the feature. So you can go and learn around getting started with S3, and there's a lot of tutorials there. You can use those tutorials for your learning purposes. Yeah, but I think the one which I have covered here is more than enough to start, or having knowledge around S3. We have already talked about how you can create an IAM policy against S3 in our previous section. So that will add to S3. S3 tutorial, how you can enable access to your to users to access your S3. What we have learned here is how you can enable S3 to get access by other users. Okay, it's a kind of voice also. Yeah, so I will take a pause, and I will let you guys ask any question if you have any. Okay, really silent. So I'm sure you guys. Okay, fair enough, guys. So having said that, we are done with day 3, and yeah. So if you have not donated yet, so just donate to charity who's working for COVID-19. That is important. So that's the reason I'm putting all this effort to have this thing being created and presented to you guys, so you can help me to donate to some kind of charity, or you can donate to one of my friends' charity, Sukarma Foundation. They're also doing awesome job. I will put that link into description if you wanted to donate her. And she's working around all those migrants who's kind of affected due to COVID-19 in India. So having said that, thank you very much, and have a nice weekend.
When is the next class?